this is such a conflict-less episode. Like the Klingon Marauders don't even really do anything.
There's no reason that they're Klingons. They are.
Yeah.
I would say they're actually antithetical to Klingons. I don't believe that Klingons would act like this. Really, like they. I felt that it was a mistake to use them, and the only way that I can see saving this episode, if you want to keep the general bones intact, is that you have to play up the Klingon angle. I think a little bit. Like the Klingons either have to do something damaging at the end, or you have to kind of hint at the fact that human and Klingon relationships going forward in the timeline is not going to be good, and like maybe this is one of the reasons why. But it comes down to the plot against them makes so little sense, where they trap them in fire, and it's like, well, they can just beam out, and then after 2 minutes they do beam out, and it's like, well, you didn't save any. Now they're just going to nuke you from up in their space station and then move on and call it a day. It's like, what the hell?
They have a starship. They can target you from space and shoot you and kill you easily.
And because the only way that I think you can save that, which they don't do any service to at all, is that you have to dishonor the Klingons or make them think that what they're doing is dishonorable, so that they have a reason why they won't kill you that way.
Sure.
And because they don't treat these aliens like Klingons, which is that they're stealing in a kind of... I thought this was actually a better episode for Ferengi would fit better in what's going on here. Like this feels like a very Ferengi storyline. The Klingons don't really, the way that they're acting doesn't strike me as Klingon. It doesn't make sense for the way that the story has to resolve. And at the end, if you don't play up the weakness, the silver bullet weakness of what the Klingons have, there's no reason to not expect that they would just come back, because Larry Cedar yelling at them doesn't seem like it would intimidate real Klingons away from ever coming back to this place.
Yeah, this episode is actually it's actually kind of racist towards Klingons, if you let me finish that, because the only reason that they use the Klingons in this episode is preconceived notions about what Klingons are, because they look scary and because they're known to be violent. Nothing they do in this episode shows them to be either of those things. It's just a cheap storytelling cop-out.
Yep.
The same way you would use any. Obviously, it's not as bad because the Klingons are a fictional race, But I don't need to caveat that, I hope. But
they're real to me.
The same way you would. What's that?
They're real to me. They're real to so many of our listeners.
It's similar to a way you would use any other race as a shorthand stereotype, where it's like, well, these there's preconceived notions about how these certain people or certain alien races are, and so we're just going to leave. I feel like I'm digging myself a hole making this comparison, so I'm going to bail out. But it's just a shorthand, I think, because nothing they do in this episode is really bad. You don't see them doing anything bad. You hear them talk about taking this Duridium or whatever the hell it was called.
Yeah. They killed people the first time they showed up. That's all that we...
I guess that's what they talk about, but if they don't do it again, we don't see them. There's no conflict in this episode. There's no direct head-to-head drama. It's just they show up and they're like, "Arr," and then they leave, and then they come back, and then they don't shoot at each other, and then nobody gets killed, and I don't know. It's very safe.
But I would say
also, I loved the Vulcan self-defense thing they get taught, where it's like, this will work perfectly as long as they strike at you exactly in this one manner, which they all seem to do. So maybe I'm the dumb one.
It's the thing where they talk up because I would maybe agree with you about the shorthand thing, except I think that the shorthand that they do here is actively undermined through the episode, and I don't think you need shorthand for what is, to me, shorthand in the first place, where it could be any race that comes down and is just like, you give us this thing, and it's basically a mafia shakedown. Like, you give us this for, they don't even mention protection, but it's like, you just have to give us this stuff and no one can help you. And the way that they undermine it is that I think that what they do as characters, the Klingons undermine what I understand to be shorthand for Klingons, which is that they're super violent and dangerous, but they also have this sort of backbone of honor that you can play against. And it's undermined in the action sequences by, you can't talk up the Klingons and have it be like an incredibly, what they're supposed to be at this point is an incredibly dangerous warrior race. But 45-year-old women can just roll around like it's Dark Souls around them, and they can't hit them with a batleth. And it's like, well, they look like clowns in this case. So, you know, it got me thinking into a weird headcanon space where I'm like, are these guys supposed to be? Because I think T'Pol brings up like the High Council doesn't deal with these guys. Are these supposed to be like outcast Klingons who don't embrace being a Klingon or something? They don't really dig into that, but it felt like that was necessary to explain why they're so stupid and why they're so lame.
Yeah, no, you don't get enough time to do any of that. The real way this episode should play out is they should come back and absolutely slaughter the entire town. Yeah, and then Archer be like, "Whoa, these guys are way more intense than I thought they were."
The season finale is Archer returning to this place and just picking up the decapitated head of the leader here of this place.
It ends with him back on Enterprise, calling up the admiral, going like, "Hey, I'm not gonna say why, but these Klingons might be serious business. Maybe we might want to keep an eye on these guys."